Okay, so back to our homeostatic chart dealing with glucose levels and how our pancreas, through the pancreatic islet cells with beta cells that produce insulin and alpha cells that produce glucagon, how do they homeostatically normalize our glucose levels? As we were mentioning at the end of the last video, then when we have rising glucose levels, in other words, we're starting to get to the upper levels of this and beyond, then our pancreatic islet cells, the beta cells in particular, are monitoring that, and they're going to basically do this, which is they're going to increase the rate that the target cells are able to take glucose into them. Because if I can get glucose to leave the blood and go into the target cells to be used, then my blood levels are going to lower. Okay, we know that it does that partially through triggering the cells to build the facilitative doorways for glucose. Okay, it's also going to increase the rate at which we're utilizing the glucose. Of course, the whole purpose of utilizing glucose is to produce ATP. Okay, it's also going to cause me to start remember the white muscle fibers are white because they're full of glycogen and lacking in the myoglobin. So we know that glycogen is glucose stored in a bunch of side chains. So we know the two places that we store the most glycogen is going to be in our liver and our skeletal muscles, particularly the white muscle. So glucose is what's going to trigger glycogen reserves to be stored in both the liver and skeletal muscle. All right, now insulin is basically an anabolic chemical, so it's going to increase protein synthesis from the increased amino acid absorption. And unfortunately, though, insulin also causes us to increase our triglycerides, which of course is the chemical of adipose tissue. So it's going to not only increase protein production and increase glycogen production, but it's going to increase fat production, how we store the fat. That's why even if you eat a diet sugar, artificial sugar, you may not get the calories from the artificial sugar, but it will trigger the release of insulin, and therefore it will increase the building of adipose tissue. All right, but bottom line is insulin, if we're getting too much glucose, it's giving us ways to take the glucose out of the blood and lower that blood level. Well, what if we get too little insulin? What if it's been a while since we've eaten and we don't have a blood supply of insulin? Well, then what's going to happen is the alpha cells in the pancreatic islets, they're going to detect that, and they're going to release an hormone called glucagon. Now, just like this was a anabolic, well, then this is going to do a breakdown. So what it's going to do is this is going to be the hormone that triggers us to actually start breaking off the glucose molecules from the glycogen. And of course, we know the two major places we're storing glycogen is liver and our skeletal muscle. So just like the insulin was causing us to build up the glycogen, the glucagon is causing us to break down the glycogen and utilize the glucose molecules from that. Okay, so and just like insulin causes us to increase fat, adipose tissue, well, glucagon, just like it's breaking down to use the glucose, we can also use the fatty acids from the triglycerides. So this is the chemical that actually breaks off those fatty acids, and then it will also cause the release of glucose from the liver. So, if we are breaking down the glycogen and we're breaking down increasing the synthesis and release of glucose from the liver, then that's going to put more glucose back into the blood, which is then going to cause our normal glucose levels to rise back up. And again, here's our range for that. Okay, the next thing I want you to do is actually go to your Mastering A&P, sign in, pull up the screen where it basically goes to Study Area My A&P. So once you click on that, okay, this screen should basically come up. Now, normally I have you doing a lot of stuff out of animations and videos, And by the way, don't forget there's a lab tools section for you to look at things, especially models and everything. But what I want you to do right now is go to Interactive Physiology. Click on that. This screen will pop up. And then I want you to scroll up to basically the endocrine system. And then I want you to go to the very first thing, IP Anatomy Review Animation Endocrine. You click on that, this will come up. Now, this is the video that you need to watch to be able to basically go through the video and look at the worksheet that I've provided. Now, this video is actually taken from the original original program that the worksheet deals with, and it may not be word for word like it normally is, but it's close enough because it's the same information. If anything, it's probably shortened just a little bit because this actually is 24 minutes and 51 seconds. So this is 25 minutes. So it is going to give you the majority of the information. So go through this program. And again, here, actually look from what we were just talking about. Here's a pancreatic islet from the pancreas. You can see the round pancreatic islet. You can see both the alpha and the beta cells to give us our two hormones, insulin and glucagon. So this will run over some of those really important concepts and show, where the glands and the organs that contain the tissues and glands are in the body, but then it will go into a little bit more detail on some of that. So I want you to go through this and use your worksheet as a guide.